Well, welcome to Portland, Oregon. Wink. We're talking about the Bitnile Grand Prix that IndyCar ran this weekend. There was a lot of controversy. Some of that had to do with the TV provider. Some of it had to do with some of the on-track driving standards. We'll talk about all that. We crowned a champion. Not really a surprise, but certainly something I think that's worth talking about and historically extremely significant. And, we've got to talk about Will Power, who right now we don't have any idea officially where he's going to go next year. So, and the fact that he, almost a year to the day of his last win, which was also at Portland, wins again, breaks the Penske streak, the worst season that Penske has had since 1999. Will Power goes to victory lane in that kind of a season with all this tumultuous stuff happening with Team Penske. We have a lot of things to talk about. So if you're interested in IndyCar content and racing content in general, of course, I was in Road America, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, covering the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship last week. And now we're back to IndyCar coverage from Portland this week. So, yeah, and then we'll be on the ground in Milwaukee, which is going to be super cool for a lot of reasons. We've got another really big video coming up, and that's all I can say right now. But if you like the Zach Brown interview, you're probably going to like this one as well. We're also going to, I'm wearing the merch that is currently just about sold out at gutswear.com and at the Gutswear trailer. We are planning on debuting another piece of merchandise very soon. I think it's just going to be another color of this, but for you early adopters, you guys got the white shirts, and I think that's how they're going to stay exclusive. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment, leave a like on the video. All of that stuff helps the channel out a ton. So I suppose we'll talk about the thing that had a lot of people upset even before the green flag dropped, which was the fact that for the first race under the Fox Sports 1/3 ownership of IndyCar, IndyCar for the first time during its Fox contract ended up with a race starting on FS1. And in fact, a couple of markets, most notably the Chicago area, which of course David Malukas is a native of, and Dale Coyne Racing is based out of, that market did not have their local Fox affiliate pick up the IndyCar race. That was a Chicago Bears game. Which I guess, the NFL is king, blah, blah, blah. It's everything we're always going to hear. But, in just one market, maybe that's excusable. But then, of course, the Live Golf tournament went long. And that meant that not only, and credit to IndyCar for pushing the start time back, trying to get the race to start on Fox. They did that at Laguna Seca when I think a soccer match went a little bit long. And then here, IndyCar tried to get the race started. You think back to 2018 with that kind of disastrous championship fight at Sonoma where it was NASCAR interrupted it, and then it all got all kinds of screwed up. So, and they missed the championship the deciding moment where Alexander Rossi managed to knock his front wing right off of the bat. So, they tried to get it out, but the golf went super duper long, and then we were starting the Fox era of IndyCar as an ownership stake. They were on FS1, and people were really upset about it. And I understand why, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I think we were all really excited about Fox, buying in. I think a lot of people, paddock-wide and as well with the fan base, were like, oh, yeah, great, they're going to commit to us. And then immediately that's the first taste you get of the ownership, which is, it's circumstantial, sure, but, like, how did you not know the golf tournament was going to go long? Golf tournaments go long all the time. I don't know. At the end of the day, the inevitable finally became official, and that is that Alex Palou is a four-time IndyCar champion. He won his third in a row at Portland, finished third. And you can't say, so many of the complaints this year about Alex Palou have been that he's been making the races boring or making the series boring, or we're going to need the Alex Palou playoff system. No, we don't. And I think anyone who was watching that race would tell you that Alex Palou made it significantly more exciting that he was in that race than he wasn't in that race. I think the battle between him and Christian Lundgaard for second, which, by the way, I think had he gotten around Lundgaard, would have been the battle for the win, because I think he would have passed Will Power, but he couldn't get around Lundgaard. But it was a super exciting battle. Alex fought the entire way to the championship. I can't really complain about the way Alex raced to win his championship. And then he torched the engine on a burnout, and we doing some donuts, some Zanardi donuts, and we love to see that. So, I thought this is the cap to an incredible season, and it really isn't the cap because we've got 2 races to go, right? And that, of course, lines up completely, or would potentially line up completely, as Alex did not win this race. That the potential magical, record-tying 10th win season could still happen. Only 2 other drivers have ever achieved that in history. A.J. Foyt in 1964 and Al Unser Sr. in 1970. And if you think about that, that's quite a long time ago in a very, very different sport than we have these days. So I think if Alex could win at Milwaukee, we know he's good on short ovals now. And Nashville, we never really got to see him race because he was protecting a championship last year. If he does achieve the 10-win season, I think we're really going to have to talk about it being one of the best seasons we've ever seen in IndyCar racing. It's certainly the best in the modern era. And, he's such a worthy champion. And I think one of the things that I'm going to say right off of the bat about Alex Palou, and I've been saying it all year, but if you're an IndyCar fan, especially if you're one of those people who've complained about Alex Palou, I think you're wrong, and I think you need to reevaluate and consider what you're seeing with Alex Palou, because the whole the best drivers in the world or best driver in the world thing gets thrown around a whole lot, but I think genuinely Alex Palou is one of the best drivers in the world right now, and if you're an IndyCar fan, you get to see him perform at the highest level. And you get to go to autograph sessions, and you get to rub elbows with him, and you get to see him. If he was racing in Formula One, you would never see Alex Palou. You would never be able to interact with him. You'd never be able to say a word to him. And yet you get to go to an IndyCar race and see Alex Palou and interact with him. I think that's pretty cool. And you shouldn't take it for granted because, and just throwing a hypothetical out there, what happens if Red Bull calls him, and offers him a seat for next year? Do you really think he's not going to take it? Do you really think he wouldn't take a Formula? Maybe not Cadillac, right? But if it's a seat that's halfway decent, you really don't think he would take it? Is it? I think we all are just kind of sitting around here going, yeah, we're going to have Alex Palou forever. Are you sure about that? Because the guy is damn good, and he's on everybody's radar now. Everybody's radar. So I'm sure Ganassi would like to keep him. They won their 17th championship. That ties them, by the way, with Team Penske for the most championships all time in IndyCar, which is absolutely insane considering that Ganassi is a significantly younger team, relatively speaking, than Penske. And I think there's a real discussion right now to be had about which team's actually the best in the modern era. I think it's Ganassi versus Penske, especially recently. But I think even if you go back 30 years, if you compare head-to-head, blow for blow, it's Ganassi. Who else would not want to lose Alex Palou? Honda. They also clinched the Manufacturers' Championship, something we don't talk about, I feel like, nearly enough. We probably should, considering how much Chevy and Honda spend to win the Manufacturers' Championship. Again, kind of a foregone conclusion, considering how much they won this year and how much they won in a row this year. But yeah, no, the good times are rolling at Honda. We hope they continue for many, many years to come, especially past 2026. So let's take a look at the results for this race, and then I'll get into some of the kind of 30,000 feet discussion. So as I mentioned, it was Will Power winning the first time in a year that he has won an IndyCar race. Ironically, it was Portland of last year. It was a really great drive from Will Power. He definitely went off strategy. Penske started on the red, softer compound tires, and he had to endure a harder compound stint and managed to get it across the line first. So Will Power still proving he's one of the best drivers in the series. Christian Lundgaard, one of these days, he's going to get a win. And had he not had to take a grid penalty, I think he probably would have won today. He had to fight from the 7th position after qualifying on the pole position, but didn't manage to get it quite close enough to Will Power to win. Alex Palou clinches the championship. Pretty spectacular drive, exciting battle to third. Really exciting battle with Christian Lundgaard, which I thought was awesome and really, really fun from Alex Palou. Graham Rahal, I feel like this is just something that no one is going to talk about, period. But 22nd to 4th for Graham. And, if you look at the Will Power sweepstakes, Graham is one of those drivers who really, really wants, I think, Will Power on his team. And, we might actually see that. Who knows? Alexander Rossi gains 1 spot from his 6th starting position on the grid. And, you know what? Shout out Alexander Rossi. That was a solid result. Not one, again, that's going to be talked about all that much, but a solid result for Alexander Rossi. Callum Ilott continues a string of really, really good finishes, coming home P6, and he's been in the top 10 essentially since Iowa, and quite frankly, he should have been in the top 10 at Iowa and didn't. He got in the wall a couple of times. Scott McLaughlin 7th after starting 11th, so not a terrible day for Team Penske outside of just Will Power winning the race. They performed. They look a little bit like the old Team Penske. Marcus Armstrong started 8th and finished 8th. Felix Rosenqvist fell from his 2nd starting position to 9th. Colton Herta had what looked like it was a disastrous day the entire time and ended up in the top 10, so figure that one out. Scott Dixon got a penalty for running over the back of Joseph Newgarden coming out of the pits at one point. Christian Rasmussen was not penalized for a much bigger crash that happened off the front of his car. We'll talk about that in a second. Louis Foster started 14th, finished 13th. Stingray Robb, a kind of understated 14th finish for Stingray. Robert Schwartzman gained 10 spots from 25th to 15th. Nolan Siegel gained 1 spot. Rinus VeeKay gained a few to finish 17th. Devlin DeFrancesco started 12th and finished 18th. David Malukas, not a great job from David Malukas, starting 4th, dropping significantly through the field, and kind of, if we looked at the drama way of things, he got lapped by Will Power towards the end of the race. Kyle Kirkwood, just a completely off weekend for Andretti Global. Started 19th, finished 20th. Kiff Dog got a penalty for running someone over, so he was way back there. Marcus Ericsson was one of the drivers in the lap traffic that was able to cause some excitement there towards the end. Jacob Abel gained 4 spots from his 27th starting position. Joseph Newgarden, his terrible year continues, finishing 24th through no fault of his own. He was knocked out of the way by Scott Dixon. Pato O'Ward started on the pole, finished 25th, and lost the championship after the black box on his racing machine fried. Connor Daly, of course, ended up in the wall, and so did Santino Ferrucci with a very strange crash off of the final corner and nearly got the pit attenuator. So I mentioned some of that Team Penske drama, and a lot of it centers around one William Power. And you look at Will, and you look at the season that he's had, especially relative to Team Penske, and the fact that he is the sole reason I believe that Team Penske is going to win a race this year. I mean, we'll see at Milwaukee and Nashville. You expect that Penske is going to have a strong shot at Milwaukee and even really Nashville to a certain extent. But man, I think the general consensus right now is, and Will even said it, he's not even allowed to negotiate a contract until the 31st of August, which is almost at the end of the season, essentially, a day or two before the season ends. So I don't know if Penske's really treating him all that right. And if you look at the way that he came off of the racetrack, and when the question was asked of, kind of where he thinks his future is going to lie, and kind of, he was reflective. He said, I've had a great run with Team Penske and Verizon. Now, we can, and people were talking on Twitter when I put that quote out, if is it, what's the proper grammar and what does that mean? And, looking too much into the grammar side of things, I think, because if you hear what he said and how he said it, it had a sense of finality to it. So, it's kind of crazy that Will Power was in contention for the championship just last year. He's the only driver in the Alex Palou era, since Alex Palou has been at Ganassi, that has won a championship. right? So um, it's weird. It's really, really weird that, and you also think, and it's one of the great points I think that can be made about Will Power especially, is that he's one of the drivers. He's the guy who is right now kind of the senior member of Team Penske, and in a time when Team Penske is in a complete state of upheaval, everything kind of getting, taken, and thrown XYZ different ways, different people getting thrown out. It's management changes, driver changes potentially. You don't want to keep Will Power consistent. I don't know. That surprises me. And yes, at some point he is going to become, the driver who is, 2 years outside of his window, right? Like eventually he's going to not be the greatest driver in the world anymore. Okay, I understand that, but if you don't think that when that deadline hits at the 31st, that teams aren't going to come running for Will Power, you're crazy. So I think this silly season is going to get even more silly with Will Power, and I think he's got at least a couple years left of him in IndyCar if he so chooses to come back, which I believe he will. Let's talk about the Connor Daly, Christian Rasmussen nonsense, I guess we'll put it. Now, I was pretty harsh on Christian Rasmussen on Twitter in kind of the immediate aftermath of the contact, which was extended amounts of contact. Coming out of turn number 7, there was contact between Rasmussen and Connor, and Rasmussen took responsibility for it. In some of the post-race comments I saw him to make to Bob Pockris and others, made contact, both cars went off the track, dirt tracking, all that stuff. Connor got the red mist. Connor goes down into the festival curves and tries to hit Rasmussen. Okay, that's a no-no. Shouldn't be doing that. That's vehicular combat. If you want to watch that, that's there's the NASCAR Xfinity series, I would say. But then it escalated more, and Connor tried to pass Rasmussen around the outside going into turn 10, and they got into each other. And Rasmussen did not yield the position to Connor, and Connor ended up hitting the wall at about 130 miles an hour. And thankfully, Connor was okay. But what is not okay, I think, and look, do I think Rasmussen said, "I'm going to go try to murder Connor Daly"? No. But do I think that he had a choice to lift, and he did not lift? Where if you watch the broadcast and look at literally any other car or driver in that situation throughout the race that they lifted, including Alex Palou going for a second place, that is just, it escalated, and I'm disappointed in race control that they didn't penalize some of the escalation, and maybe we'll see some grid penalties at Milwaukee. They gave Kiffin Simpson one for avoidable contact for something that happened on lap 1 at Laguna Seca. Now, understandably, Kiffin was out of the race on the first lap, so maybe they felt that they needed to give him an additional penalty, whatever. But it's weird. It's a weird contrast right now to see something that results in a serious accident not get penalized, regardless of what it is, and then seeing a back to front, and I called it a love tap on Twitter. Look, Dixon used the chrome horn on Newgarden, there's no doubt about it, but like a relatively light touch spinning out spinning out Joseph Newgarden, and that's penalized much more harshly than something that results in an actual crash. I don't know, it's weird. And it seems like race control seems to penalize, front to back contact a lot more than side to side contact. That's how they call it. Do I agree with that being the call? No. I think you need to look at situational bases, and I think if there's a pretty clear and obvious set of circumstances that lead up to a crash where two drivers clearly were trying to crash each other for a lap and a half and then they crash, there's got to be something done, because we don't want to see that kind of escalation, in my opinion. I think these cars are, and look, every race car driver in the world essentially has sat in a safer race car than the race car drivers before him, right? Like, the sport is the safest it's ever been. But that doesn't mean the chance is completely eliminated. So I just don't like seeing us take chances. And, that was a pretty serious accident for really no reason. That's how I feel about it. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see if anything comes down, but I just don't think that the driving standards were particularly good in that situation. So that's my thoughts on Portland. We'll see you in Milwaukee in a couple of weeks. I'm sure there'll be some more things to talk about between now and then. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.